It's
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Wasn't it great, Cayman?
Oh, what a compliment. For that, I thank you.
What is happening now? There are hopeless and hungry.
Now it's time for us to stand up to God or we fall to nothing.
It's time now for Radio Cayman's Talk Today. If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen. Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Listening to the general public, what the public is saying.
Good afternoon, Cayman Islands, and welcome to Talk Today. We have two very interesting segments for you today, and you'll hear about them very shortly. Stay tuned.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Live Communication.
Let your voice be heard.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today. I am your host, Gilbert McLean, sitting in for Sterling Ebanks, and I figure I'll be around for a few days yet. And today we have an interesting subject, and one that, if you hear what's happening regularly or being said, you would think that the Cayman Islands have turned completely secular, but we have some folks here with us who are going to tell us otherwise, and in fact, they are going to inform us about a very interesting ongoing organization and what has been happening since its inception right up until it now has become an NPO. And I have with me in the studio two persons. One I know from a very long time back, Mr. Herbert Crawford, and lady that I have just met this afternoon, Dr. Caris Bramwell. Good afternoon to both of you.
Good afternoon, Mr. McLean.
Now, as I was saying earlier and to you before we actually went on air, you get the feeling that kids now are only into dance stuff and things that are totally secular. There's nothing about church or about religion or anything of the sort. But both of you here are associated with what's called Child Evangelism Fellowship.
That's correct.
That's big. That's some big words there, Child. Well, we see that as plural for all purposes now. But Evangelism Fellowship, tell us what it's all about.
Good afternoon, everyone. Child Evangelism Fellowship is an international, interdenominational Christian non-profit organization. And this organization was founded by a gentleman by the name of Jesse Irvin Overholzer way back in 1937.
Wow, that's a long time.
At that time, Jesse was very concerned about children whom he saw from day to day not doing anything, and he was at the ripe age of 60 when he thought it would be good to have a ministry to children, which at that time was lacking. And so child evangelism came into being. And the vision of CEF is every child, every nation, every day. That means that no child would go without hearing the word of God. The word would be taken as much as possible into every nation, and it would be done every day. And so far, CF International has been living out that vision in the various countries. Should say here that there are 207 countries in the world, and CEF is to be found in 206. And the only country that CF is not operating in at the moment is the country of North Korea.
That is truly a record when you really think of it. And the teaching or the religion or the Christian fellowship is one based on what, like we would have here in Cayman, the Judean Christian type of religion, is it?
Yes.
So it wouldn't necessarily follow that they would want that in North Korea, but the fact that it is in so many countries is truly international.
It is, because when you think of it being in Cuba, in China, when you think of it being in some of the European countries which were once part of the Soviet Union, I'm very confident, and we're very confident that pretty soon the doors of North Korea will be opened, because as we speak, South Korea, across the border, they have been praying so much for the children of North Korea. And we believe that God is truly going to break down the walls and let us in so that His word can penetrate that country as well.
And Mr. Crawford, if I would say, we did get a message from headquarters to say that our President Reese Kaufman would be on air today with a very, very special message. And I want to think that this is what he'll be telling us, because like Mr. Crawford said, preparations have been made and people have been praying all over the world for this to happen. And we want to think that this could be the good news that Reese is going to share with the world today.
That would be remarkable. And of course, it doesn't hurt that South Korea seems to be warming and getting better relationship with the neighbors across the border. So that would be a major breakthrough, wouldn't it?
The opportunity is there. So we just have to follow through and follow up and see what happens. Yeah.
Now, the fact that there's this organization in so many different countries, do you have any idea how many children it is that's involved all together in this evangelism, in this ministry?
Well,
in 2016, at our 80th celebration, one country, Africa, announced that 20 million children were being reached.
Amazing.
So if that happens in Africa, then when we total the number in the world, I am sure we are close to 50 million by now.
That's remarkable.
No, it is very far-reaching, and the way it is done, we don't really have paid people to do this ministry. We're all volunteers. I have been a volunteer here for the past 8 years, and so I've been working with CF Cayman, which we'll come to in a minute. But on the global scene, there are people in just about, like I said, 206 of the 207 countries. In July, I was in Africa, in Malawi, and I visited a volunteer who runs several GNCs there.
And the GNC,
the Good News Club.
The Good News, okay.
And she has to go into remote areas, but you should see the sort of enthusiasm that those children have and these people have of reaching children even in the most remote areas with the gospel of Jesus Christ. So we're confident that, it is a good ministry. As we reach out to our children, we will begin to see a big difference in our society, in our schools, even in the churches and even in the homes, because we believe it will have a profound positive impact on their lives.
How does it work? Because nowadays it seems like you're not supposed to say prayers in schools and all of those things that's happening now. How do you get schools to agree that you can actually do that? Is it special times that is allowed in some schools at least for this?
Well, the Minister of Education is well aware of the clubs. And of course, there are several different clubs in the schools. So the Good News Club to be started in any of the primary school would not be a problem. And I'm really happy to say that having gone around to all the primary schools, the principals have been very welcoming to have this club in. And there are some teachers who are committed to doing this. So we do those clubs in the schools, and it depends on the teachers, the time they want to do it. So one school does it at lunchtime, 12 to 1. The other schools do it immediately after school. So they start at 3:05, 3:15 to 4:15. And the children are permitted by their parents, because they do have forms that they will have to fill up. But I want to say, and I really want Cayman to hear this, that anywhere children meet, there can be a Good News Club. So Mr. Crawford just spoke about Africa. In those countries, if they go anywhere on the street and they see a group of children, whether they are playing hockey or football or whatever, a volunteer immediately grasps that opportunity and they start clubs. And there are real interesting reports that having done that, these children go home and they tell their parents about it. And the things have started to happen, both in the homes and in the communities.
So the coordinators are the ones that actually go out and reach out to these children in the schools or wherever they may be, as you said. Well, that's a good point that we could expand on, but we actually need to take a short break now. So we'll let us go to our break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Talk Today. Stay with us. We will be back in about 2 minutes.
Ditch the competition and switch to Flow for up to 60% off our mobile, TV, and broadband services. Switch now for faster download speeds, better call quality, and lower roaming rates on Flow's fastest 4G LTE network. Plus, with clear streaming, you'll enjoy the ultimate in home entertainment at the best value. Flow's raising the stakes, so switch and soar to new heights with us. Flow, Cayman's biggest network, proven #1 by an independent report. Visit discoverflow.ky for more. Terms and conditions apply.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
So, on a say on a war culture, well, I tell you one thing, Pirates Week or something for honor. Everybody, holiday Monday, November 12th, 9 in the morning on Cardinal Avenue. Come experience Culture Shock, and that is with a P. This gonna be filled with true Caymanian culture and heritage. Now we talking live music, demonstrations, kids zone, and of course, Grandpa's favorite part, the best local food from West Bay to East End, and everywhere in between. I mean all day long. And guess what? Snapper cook off and Culture Jam are back. And I try come on and see who got the best rundown or who can do the best running man. I reckon so much going on and I can't miss it.
The excitement continues at 7 p.m. with the Illumination Night Parade fireworks finale while dancing with some of the Caribbean's best soca artists, Teddyson John, Second Star, and more. Downtown Harbor Drive, Monday 12th. Admission is free. Check piratespeakfestival.com for more info. Culture Shop, sponsored by Ministry of Tourism, Department of Tourism, Cayman Airways, and Radio Cayman.
Did you know that recycling collection containers are located island-wide in Grand Cayman? The Department of Environmental Health's program is an integral part of DEH's waste management responsibility in the Cayman Islands. Start your recycling program at home today. Put your tin and aluminum cans in appropriate DEH recycling containers at all Foster supermarkets, Kirk Market, or Hurley's Grand Harbor. Help keep the Cayman Islands clean. Reduce, reuse, and recycle. For more information about recycling, go to www.deh.gov.ky.
Caymankind is the Cayman experience.
We work at the Cayman Craft Market.
It is a myth that we do not need the cruise ship industry.
It is a fact that when there are no ships in port, we do not earn a living. We depend on the cruise industry, and if it was to reduce by half, many others just like us would suffer immensely. We want to work and provide for our families.
We need the pier.
Support the piers. Support our tourism.
On Friday, November the 9th at 12:15 p.m., you can hear another presentation in Radio Cayman CI Retro Talk Today special program series on Caymanian history, culture, and heritage, and its importance to the Cayman Islands community and its forward sail, future endeavors, and plans. With Remembrance Day and the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I observances coming up on the weekend, the focus will be on Caymanian involvement, sacrifice, and dedication to the defense and preservation of freedom and democracy. This special CI Retro Talk Today presentation is being brought to you by these fine sponsors. Four Winds Esso in West Bay, serving the West Bay community and the wider Cayman Islands community for over 6 decades. The Ministry of Culture, Flowers Bottled Water, the Cooler Bottled Water, and by the Appliance Doctors. CI Retro Talk Today special program presentation Friday at 12:15 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman. I am your host, Gilbert McLean, filling in for Sterling Ebanks. And we have with us in the studio Dr. Caris Bramwell and Mr. Herbert Crawford. And they've been talking with me about Child Evangelism Fellowship. And during the break, I was trying to discover just what is involved in the various teachings and what is the sharing with the kids, their Bible stories, or what is it? Can you tell our listeners just what is involved in the actual information that's given?
Okay, so for any club, and the club meets for 1 hour, 1 day per week. And in that 1 hour, children are taught very interesting songs. Children love to move about and dance and that kind of a thing. And they see actions that are being done with the songs. Then they are taught a Bible verse, and that is very interesting because it's done in every imaginable way for the children to learn the verse, to know what each word that might seem strange to them mean. So it's not just saying like we used to when we were young, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, and we learned that over and over. We still do not understand what that means. Each word that seems difficult is explained to the children, so the children can really tell you what it is that they are saying. And then we do a Bible story, and the Bible stories are taken from both the Old and the New Testament. And there again, the children see beautiful pictures, really bright colored pictures, and they follow those pictures, and they listen to the story being told by one of the persons who volunteer in the club.
Let me just expand on that. I'm a teacher of the Good News Club. I do that at the Savannah United Church after school program, and normally I have between 30 to 40 kids. And being a teacher,
which I know you are for many years,
I still have that passion for it, and so when I go in front of the kids, they're expecting something special. Mm-hmm. And when they look at you, they are paying attention. You're presenting the gospel in a way that they understand. And in telling them the stories, while you tell the story, you are showing them the pictures of that particular part of the story. And the kids are normally, after a very hectic day, they're normally glued to what you're saying to them. I mean, sometimes they're a bit restless, but the point is they will attend to what you're offering to them, if the way in which you present it. And so for all those volunteers who teach Good News Club, they have to go through a period of training to become familiar with the materials that we use, how to present it, how to follow up in leading a child to Christ. If a child says, I want to accept Jesus Christ in my life, this is what we do, this is how we do it, so that we are clear about everything and we are on the same page.
So you have special materials that you use then?
Yes, we get special materials from Ireland, and these materials, of course, are vouched by the CEF International Ministry. This is all together from them. So the design, the pictures are done at international headquarters in Warrenton, Missouri, and then the stories are written by some of them are even volunteers, students at headquarters, but they are really very interesting and almost to perfection, so that there is no mistake in delivering it when it comes for the children to get it. And like Mr. Crawford said, the children leave classes and they are restless and tired, but the music gets them going. So they love that music, and when they know that what's coming next after the singing is going to be, and children love pictures, so they enjoy looking at those pictures and hearing the story when it is being told to them.
And just to say that these stories are age appropriate. We go from preschool, 4 years or 5 years through to 12, and the stories are age appropriate. Every volunteer has the booklet. The booklet has its objectives, what the objectives are. Each step you follow to present the lesson. Then after you have presented the lesson, there are also a list of questions that you can ask the kids to see the extent to which they grasp the lesson that you have just taught. And then when you begin the next lesson the following week, you review, and then you teach, you ask the questions, and you review. So you are reinforcing what you did week 1 into week 2, and by the end of the first 6 weeks, they would have covered a theme. Suppose we were doing about the life of Christ. For the first 6 weeks, all the lessons would be about some things in the life of Christ that he did. Some stories like whether healing the lepers or raising Lazarus from the dead, anything like that. Those stories are from the life of Christ, and so we teach that for the first 6 weeks, and then we review before we go on to another theme.
Actually, what the teachers use, it's similar to
teaching methodology.
Teaching method. That's right, exactly. And the difference, though, I guess, why the children love that, they are not going to be doing any written test. So
no exams.
No exams, and they love that.
Interesting. Now, we've been talking more or less about the international side of things, and clearly it is international. But what about the Cayman scene? Tell us something about what is happening here in Cayman, and how many schools, or do you have to change the methodology here? Are you getting some resistance from within the schools, or what is really happening?
Before we get to that, let me just give a bit of background into when we started in Cayman.
Certainly.
We started officially back in 2011, when in 2011 when we had our first CEF board, consisting of seven members, and once that board was established, training followed, and we engaged people from the community, people from the churches, people from schools to do the training in order for us to establish these good news clubs. So these good news clubs have been in some of our schools since 2011. All right? You can take it from there, Sister Caris.
Okay, and right now we have good news clubs in all of the primary schools. Of course, there are challenges because, like we know, teachers are overladen with work, but we do appreciate and we encourage teachers to help out, because once the children are accustomed to seeing the teachers, so if a teacher is present for the club, it makes it easier on the other volunteers who might be coming from a church, or like Mr. Crawford said, in the community. But the clubs are ongoing. We have them, one or two of them, kind of on and off because of maybe a need for more volunteers, and this is where we call out to the Christian people in our churches to volunteer to help. It's only an hour, and once this happens, then we know that there are enough persons to do the club, because the policy is the club should have at least 2 adults. The children are never to be left alone. So if we have 2 adults, of course, 4 is a good number. But if we have 2 to start, then the club can be ongoing, and we can always be reaching out to more children. So I'm really happy to say that all the schools now have the Good News Clubs since 2016. And as Mr. Crawford said, being the national coordinator, my job is to visit the schools at least once every 2 weeks, and to make sure that the Good News Club is going on. They all use the same materials. So say for the month of September and half of October, we get one set of materials that every school has the same thing, right?
Well, do you find kids 6 to 12, do you find among those kids that there are some who absorb what's being said or taught to them to the extent that they can work and sort of instruct their own among themselves?
Okay, definitely. They listen so attentively. I brought one of my flyers,
yes,
and I took some pictures of especially 2 clubs as the children were sitting, because children love stories, and more so when they have pictures. So the children do sit attentively. Of course, you're going to have those 1 or 2 kind of fidgety and so on.
Of course.
But they listen attentively. They are ready to answer questions. And if you allow them, once you have told that story, they are ready to tell the story again. So they will introduce that to their friends and so on. So they are very, very enthused about it and very energetic, and they love, once they start coming to the clubs, they love it. When I go to the schools, they will meet me and then they say, "Are you doing club today, Mrs. Bramwell?" So they are really very interested in the clubs.
Okay. We have to take a quick break right now. We will be back. You're listening to Talk Today, and we'll be right back.
Brand Source Home Gallery has been appointed the exclusive Cayman supplier for Duravit bathroom products. Duravit is the leading international manufacturer of bathroom ceramics, tubs, and showers, recognized around the world for beautiful, functional products. Winner of top industry awards, Duravit collaborates with leading European designers to provide the most elegant and innovative bath products. If you're ready to bring style, comfort, and innovation to your bathroom, visit Brand Source Home Gallery to see the new Duravit showroom and meet the in-house bath designer. Whether you're planning a functional family bathroom or a personal spa retreat, browse the Duravit collection and be inspired. Brand Source Home Gallery, delivering a new standard in custom designed bathrooms. Brand Source Home Gallery, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park.
South Coast Bar and Grill up in Breakers, man, that is the place. For traditional Cayman cuisine, oh, you will love the taste. At South Coast Bar and Grill, we got conch and lobster and turtle stew. And every Sunday, come out with your family for the barbecue.
South Coast Bar and Grill by the seaside, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, lunch and dinner. Call us at 947-2517.
For Cayman and cuisine, the talk today is South Coast Bar and Grill.
Hi, fellow classmates. This is Donna with a roll call for our CIHS Class of 78 40-year reunion. Barracuda, Dolphin, Marlin, Tarpon, Wahoo, represent. Save the dates, November 9th through the 11th. We want everybody to come out for great food, great music, great company, and great memories. Link up now on the reunion Facebook page, CIHS Class of 78, or email CIHS78@gmail.com for more details. And see you in November. Cutting class reunion will affect your final grade. I wonder if Mr. Whiteside would give me a merit note for this.
Class of 78, call the Classique to leave your contact information.
I'm your bookman.
You remember the sale at Vamp Motors?
Yeah, the Your Sale, Your Choice, the one where you can get cash back or can put the savings to extend the warranty or upgrade features?
Yes, it's still going on, but now you can get $8,000 off a new Ford Ranger truck. $8,000, you know?
You for real?
Come see for yourself. While they still have so much to choose from, save big during Your Sale, Your Choice at Vamp Motors. With almost every vehicle on sale, you decide whether to get your dream ride at its lowest price. Take cash back, add years to the warranty or service plan. Choose an add-on or mix your options. Your sale, your choice, because you know what you need, and Vamp Motors will help you drive it home. Vamp Motors on Walkers Road.
Get ready, Cayman, get ready. The Power of Faith Deliverance Ministries presents Dominion Convention 2018 under the theme, Thy Kingdom Come, on November 11th through the 18th. Come hear international and local speakers. On November 17th, come be a part of a brunchy buffet beginning at 11 a.m. and a grand inspiration in the evening at 7 p.m. See you there!
Cruise tourism is a vital part of Cayman's economy. It is the government's responsibility to create an environment where our people can have an opportunity to grow and prosper today, tomorrow, and into the future. It is a myth that Cayman does not need cruise tourism. It is a fact that cruise passengers spend $200 million per year buying services from small businesses, tour operators, attractions, restaurants, and retail shops. Those funds stay right here, supporting our economy and communities. Support the pairs. Support our tourism.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman, where in the studio with me is Dr. Caris Bramwell and Mr. Herbert Crawford. Now, just before we took the break, I think, Dr. Caris, you were saying that it's in all of the schools. Does that include all of the island?
Just the government schools.
Yes, but is it over in Cayman Brac?
Certainly, there are clubs over in Cayman Brac. Last year, the numbers were very, very encouraging. There might have been a little lull in what's happening on the Brac, and Mr. Crawford will speak to that, the cause of that. But we are optimistic that the clubs are still going on, even though I have not yet been there to encourage the teachers. But yes, they have.
And Brackers still go to church.
They do go to church, and the children take part.
Yes.
Yes.
We actually had a teacher on the Brac who used to teach at one of our schools on Grand Cayman. And so she went over. She was a part of Child Evangelism Fellowship when she taught in Jamaica. So she actually took the materials to the Brac, and she established a Bible club with her class. So when we went to the Brac in 2016 and visited her class at one of the schools there, we discovered that she had still been teaching Child Evangelism Fellowship using the materials. But she would go online and download what is available there and use it. So wherever you are, once you have become a part of this organization, it goes with you wherever you go, and it is something that you cherish for life, especially knowing that you are touching the lives of our most vulnerable, our children. And if we can touch our children, and if we can effect change in their lives and impact them in a positive way, I think all of the commitment we have and the hard work we put into this, it would have worth it at the end of the day. Because what kind of society do we want? We want a society in which people feel safe to live, in which their values are appreciated, and where families can live together in peace and harmony. And so it is our role, and it is our hope that as we continue to work in our schools to present CEF, that we will see a marked change in our children.
Quite true. And when you speak of safety, we hear so much of instances where there is breaches of the law and behavior that is unacceptable. So dealing with the younger ones and getting the right message across can make a whole lot of difference as they grow into youth and into adulthood. So from the Cayman perspective now, Mr. Crawford and Dr. Karras, tell us now where and to what extent you're set up here in Cayman and where you working towards. What about finances? How is that being handled? And any words, any particular information that you want to get across to the public out there and to teachers and to parents? Give us a sketch of the scenario here in Cayman.
At the moment, we have a office that is being established. We have our materials there, and this is on Kingbird Drive. From there, I work, so I take the materials to the schools. And my question is to you as community, as Christians, and we know we want to have a good community, and we know of a certain that once the children's lives are changed, then the home is going to be different, and definitely the school is going to be different. So we want you to help us. We do not have any funds because we have really just started again. So we are seeking persons who know that you have been led by the Lord to become financial partners with us, to become prayer partners. And everyone knows that there's nothing that can be done without money.
Quite
Our
true.
travels, we need traveling money. We want snacks for the children. We have to have money. So we are seeking financial sponsors and prayer partners. And no amount is too big. They would say no amount is too small to offer to Child Evangelism Fellowship. And you can be assured that that is going to bring back a good harvest when you contribute. The CEF organization is so set up that one does not have to worry that when you contribute, this money is going to go otherwise than it was intended to be. So if you are interested in any way and you would like to make any contribution, you could call the CEF office. It's 926-1514 1541. I'm sorry. It's 926-1541, or email carisbramwell2@hotmail.com for more information in this regard.
And speaking of the fact that there should be no doubt in the minds of anyone who might want to contribute, you are registered as, you're a registered entity, aren't you?
Yeah. Okay. Maybe the public might be asking, how is it that they have not heard about this organization before?
Mm-hmm.
Well, like I said, we started in 2011, and we basically have been using volunteers to do the work, because we were not registered as a non-profit organization until recently. We just got that status in June of 2018. And we thought it not to solicit any funds from anyone prior to us becoming an NPO, because we know of the issues and problems there have been in the past with some NPOs. We are very transparent. We have a board. We have a chairman of the board, secretary, treasurer, all the different offices within that board. And therefore, we feel more comfortable now. We can go to the public and solicit whatever help that they can give us. Our official launch,
I was going to ask
official
about the
launch takes place this Saturday, the 10th of November, at the St. George's Anglican Church. We're having a brunch. It starts at 10 o'clock. This, unfortunately, is by invitation only, because we really couldn't do for the entire public. But on behalf of CF Cayman, I am making an appeal to the public that, if you want to support our ministry, we will be grateful and thankful for whatever financial support that you can give it. If you would like to become a volunteer, and you are a Christian and you're prepared to abide by a child protection policy and be trained, we welcome you on board. It is non-denominational. When children accept the Lord Jesus Christ, we encourage them to find a church of their choice wherever they want to go. We don't tell them to go to this church or that church, wherever they want to go.
Well, I want to thank you both for coming here and informing our listeners and the public at large what is happening with your organization, Child Evangelism Fellowship International. You're now a registered entity, and you're having the launching this weekend on Saturday, is it? Saturday, what time again?
It's at 10 a.m.
10 a.m. at
St.
George's Anglican Church. You can reach Dr. Caris at 926-1541, and she will be able to direct you from there. Thank you once again for being here with us on Talk Today. We now have to take a break and go to news.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Pirates Week Festival presents its annual costume competition where the 5 districts of Grand Cayman compete for the honor of Best National Costume. The event is taking place on Saturday at the main stage of Harbor Drive at 5:30 p.m. This year, it announces a new name for the competition, which embraces the true meaning of Pirates Week, Heritage, which resulted in the name District Heritage Ambassador Costume Competition. It's record-breaking numbers in this year's crucial midterm elections in the United States. More women and LGBT people ran than ever before with a polarizing president in the White House. Many predicted voters would head to the polls in droves. While the headline remains that the Democrats won the House and the Republicans held the Senate, these elections will be remembered for a host of different reasons. Some of the records broken include the number of women elected to Congress more than doubled, and 29-year-old Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became the youngest woman ever elected to Congress at the age of 29. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Kersley Fuller.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
A trip to New York City is the experience of a lifetime. Starting this December, Cayman Airways will be offering daily non-stop flights from Grand Cayman to New York City. That's right, Cayman Airways is going daily to New York City starting this December. Stroll through Central Park or take in the bright lights of Times Square, enjoy a Broadway show or visit museums, the Empire State Building and so much more. Whether you're visiting for business or pleasure, you'll fall in love with New York City. And daily non-stop flights from Grand Cayman aboard Cayman Airways starting this December. For details and to book, call Cayman Airways reservations at 949-2311. Contact a travel agent or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Hi, fellow classmates. This is Donna with roll call for our CIHS Class of 78 40-year reunion. Barracuda, Dolphin, Marlin, Tarpon, Wahoo represent. Save the dates, November 9th through the 11th. We want everybody to come out for great food, great music, great company, and great memories. Link up now on the reunion Facebook page, CIHS Class of 78, or email CIHS78@gmail.com for more details. And see you in November. Cutting class reunion will affect your final grade. I wonder if Mr. Whiteside would give me a merit note for this.
Class of 78, call the Classique to leave your contact information.
I'm your So on a say on a war culture, well I tell you one thing, Pirates Week got something for honor. Everybody, holiday Monday, November 12th, 9 in the morning on Cardinal Avenue. Come experience Culture Shock, and that is with a P. This gotta be filled with true Caymanian culture and heritage. Now we talking live music, demonstrations, kids zone, and of course, grandpa's favorite part, the best local food from West Bay to East End, and everywhere in between. I mean all day long. And guess what? Snapper Cook Off and Culture Jam are back. And I try to come out and see who got the best rundown or who can do the best running man. I reckon so much going on and I can't miss it.
The excitement continues at 7 p.m. with the Illumination Night Parade fireworks finale, while dancing with some of the Caribbean's best soca artists, Teddyson John, Second Star, and more. Downtown Harbor Drive, Monday 12th. Admission is free. Check piratesweekfestival.com for more info. Culture Shock, sponsored by Ministry of Tourism, Department of Tourism, Cayman Airways, and Radio Cayman.
Thousands of Caymanians work in our cruise tourism industry. It is a myth that Cayman does not need cruise tourism. It is a fact that 4,500 Caymanians work in this industry today as taxi and tour operators, boat captains and crew, restaurateurs, retailers, water sports operators, and ambassadors at our attractions. If our cruise tourism industry is half of what it is today, what are we going to do with our people, the thousands of unemployed Caymanians? Support the peers, support our tourism.
Are you well rested? That's great.
You better be, because it's Pirates Week, and it's time to enjoy the celebrations of our heritage.
This my show now, boy.
We will have the YCLA finalist, Kimberly Conley, will be on the show this Wednesday.
And our third intergenerational discussion.
So, join us this Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. right here on Radio Cayman 89.9 FM for the first episode of Season of Creativity.
Youth Flex, a program for all people by young people. Youth Flex, more than talk.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today. I'm Gilbert McLean, sitting in for Sterling Dwayne Ebanks. And for this segment of the show, we have with us Mr. Michael Ebanks, Mr. Robert Scotland, and Mr. Leo Anglin. And they're here to talk to us about the maritime safety in support of Red Ensign Group. And, of course, this is something which I claim no great authority in, but I think that these three gentlemen here, they have that kind of information. And this time I'd like to welcome both of you three gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
And I don't know who would want to start, but whoever wishes to step in first. Perhaps the best thing that we can do at this point in time is to find out what is the Red Ensign Group, and particularly what is the information that this afternoon you'd like to get across.
Sure. Generally, when you think about Red Ensign Group, you immediately cast your thoughts to the Maritime Authority. And certainly the Maritime Authority has done no shortage of work to develop Cayman as a world-class shipping registry. And so the Red Ensign Group is a collective of the shipping registries in the UK, the Crown Dependencies, the overseas territories, and collectively then ships that are registered in any of those jurisdictions are classified as a British ship. But today we definitely do not intend to speak on behalf of the Maritime Authority. They are functioning quite well, and like I said, at a world-class level under the directorship of Mr. Joel Walton and his fantastic team. But what we definitely want to draw to the public's attention is that there's a huge maritime safety and security element in furtherance of the shipping registry in the Cayman Islands, and certainly across the overseas territories, Crown Dependencies, and the UK alike. So it's a good opportunity for us to sort of speak to maritime safety, maritime security, and in that sense I have with me the newly appointed commander, Mr. Robert Scotland, and the Lieutenant Commander, Mr. Leo Anglin, both of the newly established Cayman Islands Coast Guard, to which obviously maritime safety and security forms a pivotal part of their remit. So it's on that basis that we definitely thank you for having us today and to Radio Cayman.
Well, thank you very much. That sets the table as to what we're going to actually be talking about here. And what, we have a number of ships that are registered here in Cayman, and what I'm understanding is that a ship registered here in Cayman, in effect, is called a British registered ship, and then the Red Ensign rules or come into effect. And precisely what do you gentlemen look forward or for in security and safety? Can you fill us in on some of that?
Well, there are actually some international standards that are set through the International Maritime Organization relative to standards that each registering country, if you will, we're a registering state, they have to adhere to. It's a composition of local law, but international standards and regulations. Pretty much any ship that you see flying the red flag,
with either the Cayman Islands logo or any of the other overseas territories or crown dependencies, those are actually red ensigns. So the red flag that you see on ships at the back or the stern of the ships are they're red ensigns.
Okay, and you speak of the international law. Would this be what I have heard from the time I was a kid? The law of the sea, the international law of the sea, comes into play. Is do the UK add to that, or there's more requirements in that particular regard that they want their crown dependencies and overseas territories and so on to abide by?
Yeah, absolutely correct and spot on. In fact, coming out of the conference, the Red Ensign annual conference in June, it was a great opportunity for us to sit around the table with our colleagues from the other British overseas territories and crown dependencies, as well with our counterparts from the UK Maritime Coast Guard Agency, and discuss some of those international standards that the commander was just alluding to. In each of our territories and jurisdictions, we have local legislation around maritime safety and security, and the idea is to harmonize our local legislation, local policies and approaches to an international standard. And if we can get to that point, then we are certainly doing ourselves justice in maintaining our world-class standard as a ship and registry. But more so, there is a public safety element to having those type of standards raised in the Cayman Islands. And so for us personally, as individuals, myself as a father, we certainly have an obligation to be aware of maritime safety and what that all entails. We are surrounded by the ocean. We have a long maritime tradition and heritage culturally, but certainly Caymanians, residents and tourists alike deserve to know that when they're in Cayman and they're operating on the ocean or other bodies of water, that there are real risks related to life and safety at sea. And there's also the other side of that coin, is that when things do go wrong, they ought to be reassured that we have appropriate responses and mechanisms to respond in place. And those responses are more than just the Coast Guard, but certainly the Coast Guard is generally the face of that maritime safety and security response mechanism. But there are a ton of other agencies that very adequately contribute to our maritime safety and security response regime. And just as recent as a few months ago, we saw the fire service, for example, come on board, and they are now deploying as a part of our search and rescue response capability. But there's a host of other agencies involved in sort of ensuring that the public has a capable response from first responders. So not just the fire service and the Coast Guard, but obviously the RCIPS, their Joint Marine Unit and their Air Operations Unit work diligently, almost day in and day out, to provide that type of response. But at a national level, certainly there's the Hazard Management Cayman Islands, there's the Weather Service, the Civil Service, Civil Aviation. So a lot of players are involved in maritime safety and security, and it's a responsibility shared across departments, units, ministries, and certainly in collaboration with our private sector stakeholders and the community at large. So it's all hands on deck, so to speak, response.
It seems that way. I mean, the various entities that you have named there, it's highly comprehensive. I mean, there's everyone. It seems like everyone is involved, both on land, on sea, the maritime side of it. Mm-hmm. Are there any particular aspects that you look for making sure that's in place here in our waters or outside of our waters, or that ships or boats or whatever that's registered to us, that they are abiding by there? What are they? What are some of those?
Well, generally in the command, I mean, currently within the GMU, RCSP at GMU, one of the remits is to do vessel inspections on the spot.
And the GMU is an acronym for what?
The Joint Marine Unit. Okay. Yeah.
That's what has recently been formed.
No, sorry. That is what the RSIPS Joint Marine Unit is the existing entity that's deal with maritime related incidents and enforcement at this very moment.
And the one that you, Mr. Scotland, and you yourself, Mr. Anglin, that you are part of what? What? Help us here so that those who are listening to us will, the Coast Guard. Okay, okay.
So I'll get to that. With the Joint Marine Unit right now facilitates that role to some degree, given the challenges. However, with the Cayman Islands, forming of the Cayman Islands Coast Guard and going forward, that was something we'll be looking into in a broader scope. In addition to providing those various inspections and enforcement to enforce some of the laws that are existing, there are some stuff that the III code or the Instrument Information Code requires us to have as well, in terms from a search and rescue perspective. And that's some things that we're really looking into, getting fit for purpose assets to answer our calls for service from a search and rescue perspective. So those are the things that you'll see us coming forward from the Coast Guard's perspective, and looking forward to providing a better service.
So let me ask you: as part of the Red Ensign requirements and so on, do you do inspections on the tourist vessels and so on that's around here? That I assume most of them are registered with us here in Cayman.
The cruise ships or private vessels. Which one are you referring to?
I'm thinking of those that
private charters.
Private, yes, yeah. that operate here now.
Local water sports. Local water sports. Yes, that is part of the joint. That's part of the remit right now that the Joint Marine Unit is responsible for. Random inspection of those vehicles to make sure that they are within the requirements. The Port Authority law actually has outlined in it quite comprehensively a set of standards that vessels of various sizes should actually adhere to.
And that sort of dovetails with this Red Ensign as well.
It does. It does absolutely dovetail quite nicely, in fact, because coming out of the last conference in June, what we see is a commitment by the various jurisdictions to have mapped out the strategic track to raise our standards around maritime safety and security over the next 2 years, in preparation for an audit to be conducted by the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, against what is known as their III code. We will be relying heavily on our internal knowledge and experience that's held within the Joint Marine Unit, but also across those various other agencies that we've spoken about, and certainly raising that standard and charting the map forward entails a transition to a National Coast Guard service. That is in no small part an organizational change management process that will be complex. And as a commander has said before in other forums, that it's not a sprint. It is a marathon of sorts, where we don't expect to have the luxury of throwing the light switch on and having an immediate result overnight. But working collaboratively, locally, regionally, with our international partners to address some of the gaps that are known to us, and as we go forward, identify new gaps, all the while raising the standards for maritime safety and security in the Cayman Islands.
So another thing that I'm trying to get a grasp of it, and it's good, I think, that you're talking to Cayman on the whole, anyone who is listening to this. The new entity that we have that would fall within the ambit of what we're talking about here is the Coast Guard. That's
yes, sir.
And we, at this time, in my mind, I would think that hopefully there'll be 2 or 3 ships or boats like the Aggressor size or some that you see around Miami and so on. We're not necessarily up to scratch to that number of vessels or whatever at this stage. Are we, or is this part of what we're working towards now?
As Mr. Ebanks mentioned, I've said it before. This isn't a sprint. It's not a 100-meter dash. It's more of. Yesterday I said 1,500, but actually, when we practically sit and look at it, you're looking at something like a full marathon. Yeah. Would we like to see eventually, maybe 10 years down the line, larger type vessels, 87-foot vessels, 110-foot vessels, patrolling our waters 24/7. Yes, that would be ideal. That would be utopia. But we also have to take into consideration the financial requirements that come with that.
Of course.
And the ability of the government to sustain that for an extended period of time or over a number of years. What we don't want to do is start a number of projects or initiatives that are well-intended but not be able to sustain them long-term. And when I say long-term, I mean 15 to 20 years. Mm-hmm. To me, that would not be a very wise investment. So part of the responsibility that we have, myself and Lieutenant Commander Anglin, along with the ministry, sitting with the Commissioner of Police, is to actually develop a strategy that will support that vision.
But at this time, you do have certain equipment that you at least have in place, a basic carry out your basic operation as required of you.
So presently, the situation is we have a Coast Guard in name. Myself and Mr. Anglin are the Coast Guard. Mm-hmm. The Joint Police Marine Unit still continues to operate in the capacity it has for many, many years. Once the Coast Guard is staffed, legislation has been written, policies, procedures, everything that it takes to successfully run and manage and enable a Coast Guard. The Coast Guard will go live. On that date, the assets that are currently belonging to the police service or to the Joint Marine Unit will be incorporated into the Coast Guard. Okay. Part of the assessment that we have to do is to look at current assets and ensure that they're fit for purpose. Recent inspection done by the UK Coast Guard following an unfortunate incident we had a few years ago has indicated that some of the vessels that we have may not be best suited for search and rescue operations. And while interdiction is a very important component of our remit, our primary focus is preservation of life. So if we get a call, no matter what time of the day it is or what the weather conditions are out there, we need to be able to respond professionally and timely to save lives. So that is part of our area of focus. Those calls extend for calls of vessels over 100 miles out or 100 nautical miles out, as well as calls for service within what we would say is within the reef operations or within a half a mile to a mile off of shore. 7 Mile Beach is a favorite destination of visitors. There's a lot of water sports activity going on out there, both regulated and unregulated. Part of that is seen as falling within the domain of the Coast Guard once it goes live. So we have local obligations to meet, and we also have international obligations to meet.
I think it's important to sort of draw the distinction between the response, and we often use that word response so generally, but there's a number of complexities involved in what we just sort of threw out as response. And in terms of search and rescue and maritime response, there's the inshore capability, there's sort of the inter-island or patrol within our jurisdictional waters out to 12 nautical miles, and then there's certainly calls, as the Commander said, beyond that 12 nautical mile reach, so more long-term or long range deployment. Not every vessel is suited for operation in either or all of those environments, and beyond that, there are risks and threats that come with those various responses. And we shouldn't shy away from the conversation that on one hand we have maritime safety, but we also have maritime security to balance. And the threats and risks that face our region, Cayman is not immune from those. The trafficking and smuggling of weapons, of drugs, of illegal migrants pose significant complexities when it comes to response capability. So ensuring that we have vessels and assets, including technological responses, surveillance responses and capabilities, the talent management on our human capital side, to make sure that our officers are trained to the very highest standards, to make sure that when we are deploying them into the face of unknowns, that they have the benefit of training, professional development, and experience to be able to make the decisions that are needed to save lives and protect property and otherwise. So there's a large there's a number of things that we need to tackle in terms of developing a Coast Guard service. But I'm sure you recognize, and the public will appreciate that it doesn't necessarily fall squarely on the shoulders of any one particular organization. It is certainly a multi-agency approach, and one that directly will require the involvement of our community stakeholders, whether that is persons in the water sports industry or otherwise. It is a shared responsibility amongst the general public.
Well, we need to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the Red Ensign Group and maritime safety here in the Cayman Islands. Stay tuned. You're listening to Talk Today. We'll be right back after this short break.
Hello, this is Tamara Worms-Riley, the community dietitian at the Health Services Authority, and we want you to come out and bring your entire family to the World Diabetes Day health screening at the Health Services Authority Atrium on November 14th. That's Wednesday, November 14th from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Cedar, Lions Club, and the Health Services Authority will be doing a full health screening from 8:30 to 2 p.m. on World Diabetes Day, November 14. See you there.
Honey, our fridge has stopped working again. Everything in the freezer is melting. We need to get this repaired right away. I'm calling Brand Source Service.
When you need the very best appliance service, call Brand Source Service at 623-5000. Offering service and installation of all brands and models of appliances. Brand Source Service is Cayman's source for appliance parts and repairs, with qualified and experienced technicians and the island's largest stock of appliance parts. Brand Source Service will have your repair completed in a flash. So, whatever the problem is, call the experts at 623-5000. Brand Source Service, Dorsey Drive, Industrial Park. Telephone 623-5000.
Okay, settle down. There's someone I want to thank. This guy knows how to get the most out of every fill-up. This guy had the common sense to drive into Esso so I could get back on the road. $5,000 richer. Thanks to me. Thank you so much, me. Thank you. Yes.
Spend $25 at any Esso service station and get a chance to win in weekly draws for $5,000 cash. Every week for 5 weeks, we'll be choosing a winner. You can also get a chance to win free fuel and prizes at our weekly Spin and Win events. That's $30,000 in cash and prizes to be won. Drive into an Esso station today. You'll thank yourself. The Esso brand is a trademark of ExxonMobil Corporation and is used under license.
Sometimes things just don't go as planned. That's why you need Contractors All Risk Insurance from Fidelity Insurance Brokers. Ensure you're covered in the event of property damage and third-party injury or damage claims during your construction projects. And with Fidelity Insurance Brokers, you can be sure you are getting competitive pricing and superior customer service. Call us today for a free quote. Fidelity, we're good for you.
South Coast Bar and Grill up in Breakers, man, that is the place. For traditional Cayman cuisine, oh, you will love the taste. At South Coast Bar and Grill, we got conch and lobster and turtle stew. And every Sunday come out with your family for the barbecue.
South Coast Bar and Grill by the seaside, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, lunch and dinner. Call us at 947-2517.
For Cayman and cuisine, the talk today is South Coast Bar and Grill.
On Friday, November the 9th at 12:15 p.m., you can hear another presentation in Radio Cayman CI Retro Talk Today special program series on Caymanian history, culture, and heritage, and its importance to the Cayman Islands community in its forward sail, future endeavors, and plans. With Remembrance Day and the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I observances coming up on the weekend, the focus will be on Caymanian involvement, sacrifice, and dedication to the defense and preservation of freedom and democracy. This special CI Retro Talk Today presentation is being brought to you by these fine sponsors. Four Winds Esso in West Bay, serving the West Bay community and the wider Cayman Islands community for over 6 decades. The Ministry of Culture, Flowers Bottled Water, the Cooler Bottled Water, and by the Appliance Doctors. CI Retro Talk Today special program presentation Friday at 12:15 p.m. on Radio Cayman.
Listen to the general public. Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman, where the segment is dealing with maritime safety in support of Red Ensign Group. And with me in the studio is Mr. Michael Ebanks, Mr. Robert Scotland, and Mr. Leo Anglin, who is commander and deputy in the Coast Guard, which we have started and is in the process of bringing it through its different stages up to where that it could really and fully be operational. But all of these things that these gentlemen are talking about here is the roadmap that's taking us towards that. And at this time, perhaps we could hear from you as to what do you expect from the public-private partnerships, or what are you doing or fulfilling in the meantime in this area that if you get them done now, you won't have to do them later, and it would be open for the inspection and the audit that you spoke about earlier?
In terms of, from a perspective of water safety, I mean, that's probably going to be one of the remits the Coast Guard will undertake as well. At the very moment, the Joint Marine Unit facilitates that role in terms of inspections and in terms of enforcement. The Cayman Islands Coast Guard will take on that role, and in our efforts to make sure that this is works in unison with the general public, is that we want to educate the general public what is required first and foremost, and be able to bring everyone on board. In terms of creating a better working and a safer environment for all the operators that are doing the various tours and so forth. One of the more main focuses will be the education first, and then we look at the enforcement arm in the long term. But coming from the water safety perspective is to augment that as well as the search and rescue perspective, as we spoke about earlier in terms of the various audit that's coming up. One of the requirements is that we have what you call a regional rescue coordination center. That is going to be something that we're going to look into very soon, and in the very early stages of the upcoming year, is to provide this RCC, which is a regional coordination center. And from that regional coordination center, we will be able to deal with their search and rescues from a more informed perspective. Yeah.
Would that be something established here, or it would be something that we would tie into? It would be established here.
It will be established here. Yeah. The purpose of the RCC is essentially to have a command and control of search and rescue. And the idea is that we can pool all our resources into one central location and to operate more effectively, and be more efficient in the way we do our deployments and the way we coordinate search patterns and the way we You look at the weather and how it's going to affect the operations and the crews they're deploying at the time. So that is something that's going to be coming in the early stages of 2019. In addition of better education for the public, all the boaters, and either it be commercial or private, approaching it from an informed perspective and educating the various users of our waters.
Well, you speak of private and boaters and so on. I hear of well, I know some people who go out to Pickle Bank and different places that I've heard about fishing, and it's several 60 miles, 50 miles or whatever away. You would be requiring these persons to meet certain requirements and so on, would you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, right now the Port Authority law speaks to the minimum requirements for vessels and so forth. The idea is that we want to provide the individuals the level of education needed and awareness needed for those individuals who are going those journeys. Granted, our search and rescue under the IMSAR manual, which is the International Aeronautical and Maritime Search and Rescue Manual, speaks to our remit as a country. And that puts us, our zone, approximately 135 miles in excess from Grand Cayman and so on. So at the very moment, we are challenged to meet that requirement. The idea is going forward, and like Commander Scotland and Mr. Banks has stated, this is more of a maritime, and what we want is to meet those obligations, and we try to do them as best in our best interest forward. So it with those individuals who are going off at those distances, we want to broach conversations with them, making sure that they're compliant with the various laws, have the various safety equipment, that they're more informed about making such a trek, because we're looking at 60 miles and some of those persons are going as far as 110 miles for fishing and so on. So as I see it, and I've discussed this in previous forums, Cayman is growing to be on an international scale in terms of fishing. A lot of anglers are coming here more often. They're venturing a lot further offshore, and that's becoming a norm. So
and we also have certain fishing boats now that operate from here in Cayman as well, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's also looking at, I mean, what Lieutenant Commander England has said is very important. We want to be able to provide guidance on minimum safety standards, but at the same time recognizing that we have a very diverse group of anglers, if you will, with vessels of varying sizes that can travel various distances. Those are also assets that we would look to tap into in the event that we have a SAR. And that's where the RCC that Mr. Anglin spoke about, that's where that comes in. So if we have volunteers of 5, 6, 50 vessels, we need to be able to coordinate their search areas, the zones of responsibility, and the RCC pretty much is that hub or that brain, if you will, for coordinating those joint efforts. Going back again to what I think you were saying, yes, we plan to engage local anglers, also the amateur, the aviation club that's here, because in a search and rescue situation, all hands on deck as soon as possible reduces or increases the probability of successfully bringing people back alive. As time goes on, your chances and your percentages start to go down, sadly. So once the Coast Guard has been established, we will be looking to provide, training and awareness for vessel safety, but also training and understanding of tactics around search and rescue, coordination, communication, those type of things.
It's interesting to listen to you, gentlemen, and to realize that we're truly building up to what it appears to me to be that there would be international standards and requirements. So it's actually on its way now with what is being done.
Well, I've said it before. I mean, pretty much if you look at this as a development. We're in the embryonic stage. I mean, we haven't even conceived yet because, the Coast Guard has not gone live. We're building a foundation, laying a foundation, and we're hoping to build a superstructure that, is a world-class service. It is a world-class service, and it delivers a world-class product to the people of the Cayman Islands and, anybody within our zone of responsibility, as well as being able to lend assistance where and when we can to our regional partners or closest neighbors.
And the Red Ensign group is, what would it be, a coordinator or a place which exists at a much higher level, say in the UK, but we can adopt and meet the standards that they have set here, which we're on the way doing?
The Red Ensign group, if you will, it's a collaboration of the United Kingdom, the Crown dependencies, and all of the overseas territories. All of the shipping registries within each of those entities form the Red Ensign group.
Okay.
And the Red Ensign group is then also recognized internationally by the United Nations.
Absolutely. I mean, I guess you can't overstate the importance of the UK Maritime and Coast Guard Agency and its involvement with the Red Ensign group. Sat with us at the table in Guernsey at the last conference was in fact the UK MCA commander, which shows the level of involvement that the UK's Maritime and Coast Guard Agency plays in terms of supporting the shipping registry. As we started the show by saying, our reliance on the Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands to continue taking us to the next level and then there beyond in terms of Cayman as a world-class shipping registry. That is certainly their remit, and they're doing fantastic work in that regard as it relates to maritime safety and security and raising the standards around the III code. That's a responsibility that we intend to take forward in the first instance through some quick wins. We mentioned the fire service coming on board to offset our inshore search and rescue capabilities, but there's a long strategic map going forward that involves the establishment of the Coast Guard, raising the standards around the Coast Guard service, deploying in tandem with our other public service first responders, and indeed partnering very closely with the community, drawing on the insights held by Caymanians and residents alike, and cooperating fully across the spectrum of public-private partnership opportunities.
Just how we have to go to a break in about a minute, but just how does the fire service fit into the overall structure of what we're talking about here in terms of maritime safety and so on?
Well,
and rescue.
Granted, you may be familiar with the Jenkins report, which we had falling from the 2016 search and rescue incident, and it identified significant gaps in terms of our ability to respond to the instances of search and rescue. Given the current JMU's staffing challenges, it was looked upon as an opportunity to augment one of the secondary resource to cover certain aspects of the island, one being 7 Mile Beach. So essentially the fire department will cover avenues on 7 Mile Beach through the West Bay corridor and also in the Frank Sound. Given the Joint Marine Unit's capacity at the moment, it also helped in terms of response times. The Joint Marine Unit location, given from any side of the island, can be quite challenging, having to trailer a vessel from XYZ to the point of contact.
So let me see if I'm understanding correctly. What we're talking about here, the fire service they have some craft, watercraft.
They do. They acquired two-way runners and a RNLI rib, which is a rescue rib. Okay. This was done in early the mid 2017, if I'm mistaken, and they've been trained by to the standard to operate in the capacity for search and rescue.
Okay, well, We need to take a pause and take a break now, but it is getting interesting more and more. And I dare say you want to get the information out so that people can be informed. You know, there's always those who's going to criticize when something goes wrong, doesn't happen right, and so on like it could. So we can talk about that some more. We have to take a break right at this time. You're listening to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman. We will be right back after this break.
CUC advises motorists that in an effort to alert approaching drivers of speed restrictions when entering an area of road where CUC vehicles and personnel are present, the company will be deploying rumble strips. These rumble strips are a series of raised transverse rubber strips laid across the road, which changes the noise a vehicle's tires make on the surface and so warning drivers of speed restrictions. On approaching CUC's work zones, motorists will observe bright orange road signs signifying rumble strips ahead. Before entering these work zones, motorists will encounter the rumble strips that are encouraged to drive with extreme caution at slow speeds until they are well clear of the work zones. These rumble strips are essential to safeguarding against potential danger to CUC personnel. If you have any questions regarding the use of rumble strips, please contact our customer service team at 949-5200 or via email at service@cuc.ky.
Okay, settle down. There's someone I want to thank. This guy knows how to get the most out of every fill-up. This guy had the common sense to drive into Esso so I could get back on the road. $5,000 richer. Thanks to me. Thank you so much, me. Thank you. Yes.
Spend $25 at any Esso service station and get a chance to win in weekly draws for $5,000 cash. Every week for 5 weeks, we'll be choosing a winner. You can also get a chance to win free fuel and prizes at our weekly spin and win events. That's $30,000 in cash and prizes to be won. Drive into an Esso station today. You'll thank yourself. The Esso brand is a trademark of Exxon Mobil Corporation and is used under license.
King Sports Center takes pride in being more than just an ordinary gymnasium. For 14 years, their multi-purpose facility has been providing the community with a variety of sporting, recreational, and relaxation activities. King Sports Center has a bowling alley, lounge bar, multi-purpose rooms, powerhouse gym, rock climbing wall, bungee jumping, a 10,000 square foot rink, and so much more. For more information on the variety of services, call their friendly staff today at 946-5464 or email kings@candw.ky or visit www.kingsportscenter.com. King Sports Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after.
BritK protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after.
Visit BritK.ky or call 949-8699.
BritK, where people come first.
Cayman's cruise industry must be preserved and developed. It is a myth that the cruise lines will continue to call on Cayman at the rate they do now without the piers. It is a fact that the mega-class ships will not be tendered. Arrivals will decline by half over time as the older ships are decommissioned. This will hurt our economy and thousands of Caymanians who work in this industry. If we want to continue providing opportunities for Caymanians, we need the piers. Support the piers. Support our tourism.
Listen to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman, where with me in the studio is Mr. Robert Scotland, Mr. Michael E. Banks, and Mr. Leo Anglin. And we were talking about the maritime safety and the way we have started out to bring ourselves into the in a comprehensive way with what and where we should be at this time. And as Commander Scotland has said, it's not a sprint. It's going to take time. And the interesting thing is, as these gentlemen speak about it, one can get the impression that there is much ground to be covered, and all of the various agencies which are involved with it. And I think we even discovered how the fire service, that does have some watercraft, they can be involved and assist with covering different parts of the island, which goes a long way in providing the service that we actually need. I think we have one caller, so gentlemen, if you agree, that we'll take that call. Caller, please go ahead. You're on the air.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gilbert, and good afternoon to your guest there on the show, Raymond Scott here from Cayman, right?
Good afternoon, Raymond.
Yes, sir. Very interesting story, and to your guests there, whether they have been told or they are aware that I am the man that's been involved in search and rescue in Cayman Brac, coordinating search and rescues for approximately 40 years. This November coming celebrates 40 years since I've been doing this. And I have been involved in the search and rescue and bringing safety to persons from around 40 countries of the world that have transited through our Cayman Island waters and got in trouble. It has been probably more than 100 people from Grand Cayman and 40 people from Jamaica, Haiti, Cuba, Dominican Republic, America, England. That's people now that was passing this area in sailing vessels and started sinking, and even a vessel on fire, caught fire and sunk, and 19 Hondurans were in a lifeboat. And I got the U.S. Coast Guard dispatched and saved the lives of 19 Honduran crew members, which were on a lifeboat that was submerged, and they were hanging on for dear life.
Raymond, I do know that you've been offering your service for a long, long time, and that you have, as you've said, being the hand of rescue in a number of instances, which is good, and this country, the Cayman Islands, should be grateful for it, certainly.
Yes, sir. And also to say that me and the Cayman Brac Fire Service personnel over the years have had an excellent relationship and quickness of action towards emergencies. If they call me and said, Raymond, we have a boat missing or a boat is in trouble, and then I will dispatch a ship or a boat to the area. And I want to say that a Dutchman and his wife was coming from Cuba in a sailing boat in 1224 one afternoon. He started sinking, and I dispatched the Cayman Brac Fire Service right away, and they got out. They were on the way out there. In the meantime, I had a container ship go to the sinking yacht and take the captain and his wife on board the lifeboat from the container ship and took them on board, and then took the yacht in tow and was towing it to Cayman Brac, and it sank, submerged, and then they cut the rope and let it go about 18 miles north of Little Cayman. Then they went on their journey. And to attest to that, how people can attest, the number of people in Grand Cayman can speak on my behalf if they call me or anyone in Cayman Brac, wherever, how quick in action I am to contact ships in the area, send them to locate people that are missing. And there's hundreds of people that can attest to my responsibility into the search and rescue in the Cayman Islands. And I heard there was 27 people to be employed in the maritime sector. And I have been doing this for all these years, and no one has ever recognized me into this field. And I feel I am a truly born Caymanian, and it's time for something to be done in considering and appointing me to a position to represent government in all these life-saving things that I've been doing for Caymanians and foreigners from all over the globe that gets in trouble in our waters. And I have access to knowing which ships are in the area, to contact them and order them to stop at the scene. And they stop at the scene until a rescue craft gets out from the Cayman Islands to get the people in tow and towed to safety. So I have a wealth of knowledge and experience into search and rescue around the Cayman Islands with people from here and various countries in the world.
I think that's very true, Raymond, what you're saying there. And perhaps it's something that I don't know if you've had the opportunity of meeting with the persons who, Mr. Scotland and Mr. Anglin and Mr. Ebanks here, who a team as such and dealing with this matter, but it might be something that you might wish to get in touch with them and really bring to their attention what you may do. And I'm sure they have some knowledge of it now. Mm-hmm. And again, it perhaps some specific training, although you yourself taught and you have done a number of things in that field, that it's something that you could serve with this whole effort that's going on now. Well, you're actually doing so anyway. But anyway, I do appreciate your calling in, and there's much more to be said, much more to be done. So thank you very much for your call this evening. Thank you.
Mr. McLean, if I can just publicly respond and say on behalf of the ministry and certainly on behalf of the Coast Guard, thank you to Mr. Scott. He has indeed delivered an outstanding public service for a number of years, and in no small way can be said to have absolutely directly contributed to the saving of lives and raising of the maritime safety standard in the Cayman Islands. It goes without saying that people make mistakes, people are vulnerable, and that's why safety in terms of the maritime field is a shared responsibility. And going forward, persons who have that willingness and that sort of passion to contribute to furtherance of our maritime safety, as Mr. Scott clearly does, we look forward to opportunities to engage with them, to have the benefit of their insights and experience, for them to share solutions with us so that we can take that forward, advocate as necessary, put it into the overall plan and strategic roadmap, and make this truly a collaborative approach of raising the maritime safety standards in the Cayman Islands. We don't expect to take an approach where the Coast Guard goes off and locks themselves in a room and comes out with a grandiose plan claiming to have solved all the problems. That type of approach has never worked, and it frankly never will. The commander and deputy commander both are in collaboration with the ministry, have said in a number of forums, we don't have all the answers. We never will have all the answers. But the position we'd like to be in is where we surround ourselves by persons locally, regionally, and internationally, persons who have insights and are willing to share those insights with us, because we certainly are welcoming of their thoughts and potential solutions. So before we went any further, I just wanted to publicly say thank you to Mr. Scott and indeed to all the many other folks who continue to contribute to raising the maritime safety standard in Cayman.
Indeed, I mean it's Raymond has really been doing this for a number of years. He just has a natural inclination towards it, and there have been various instances certainly that I've heard about where if it wasn't for his intervention, people out there on that big wide ocean would not have made it to safety, or their lives would not have been saved.
No, the contributions that Mr. Scott has made over the years, it goes without speaking. The debt that many people out there owe to him for actually still being alive and moving around.
Very true.
So again, personally on behalf of myself and Lieutenant Commander Anglin and the Coast Guard, thanks for what you do and thanks for what you continue to do.
Absolutely.
He's one of those people that we definitely will be reaching out to gain insight, knowledge, advice from. I mean, we don't claim to know it all.
And he's on another of our islands, so
that's another thing that that's not lost to us. It is the Cayman Islands, and it's 3 islands that comprise the Cayman Islands. What we're able to deliver in Grand Cayman, we need to be able to deliver in Cayman Brac and Little Cayman, and to the same standard and quality.
Yeah. Well, we need to take a break now and go to the 2 o'clock news. You're listening to Talk Today. Stay tuned. We will be back shortly.
Radio Cayman.
Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
We're just days away from the 2018 Young Caymanian Leadership Awards Gala event, which will highlight 5 extraordinary young Caymanians who are all making significant contributions to society and who, through their achievements and actions, serve as positive role models for the youth in Cayman. This week, we're taking some time to highlight each of the finalists. Today, we will highlight 32-year-old Kimberly Connolly. This year's gala event will be held on November 10th, that's this Saturday, at the Kimpton Seafire. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. While the focus of the U.S. midterms has been on elections to both houses of Congress as well as governor posts and state legislatures, Americans were also voting on a number of other issues hugely important to their neighborhoods. In Florida, residents who had served time in prison regained the right to vote. In San Francisco, a controversial tax on businesses was passed to help the homeless. Abortions may have become harder to obtain in some states, while cannabis smoking will be easier in others. Alcohol, transgender rights, and chickens were also on the ballot. The opposition Progressive National Party, PNP, in the Turks and Caicos Islands has pulled out of the discussion process designed to pursue constitutional advancement for the British Overseas Territory. The PNP had previously indicated that the party would wait until its convention, which would be held in November, and which would usher in new leadership that may have a new approach to constitutional advancement before committing to the process. And Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling has launched a £24,000 legal claim against a former employee for allegedly using her money to go on shopping sprees. 53-year-old Rowling claims Amanda Donaldson broke strict working rules by using her funds to buy cosmetics and gifts. Ms. Donaldson worked as a personal assistant for the writer between February 2014 and April 2017 before being sacked for gross misconduct. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
To the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman, where with us we have Commander Robert Scotland and Deputy Mr. Leo Anglin and of the Coast Guard and Mr. Michael Ebanks, I think of the Ministry, is it?
That's correct, the Ministry of Human Resources and Immigration.
Yes. And we've been talking about the efforts that has been started and is ongoing with creating a situation here where the Coast Guard functions coordination with the police, with the fire service, and as Mr. Ebanks pointed out, the kind of connection and coordination with numerous government entities here on the island. We just heard from a caller, Mr. Raymond Scott, who is well known and has a deep interest in what happens in the maritime world. And if there are other persons who might wish to give us a call, the number is 1-800-534-8255. But perhaps we can talk a bit on what is the strategic roadmap for maritime safety in Cayman. You used the acronym a while ago, Mr. Scotland. SAR, S-A-R, that is the search and rescue. What is some of the that's made in or built into the roadmap that you're following? I know there's been certain organizational structure changes, or at least it's being discussed. I don't know to what extent that it is actually in place at this time.
So basically to to properly have a search and rescue capability, it requires having the right assets, having the right people, the round pegs to go into the round holes, if you will, which entails, I mean, when you look at a person that's going to be on board a vessel that's going out in weather that most normal, sane people will be coming in from, this is the type of conditions that people on board or within the Coast Guard are going to be expected to go out into. Coast Guard mottos.
Can I just ask you there, what you just said, because there was one instance here where a life was lost, and I recall, I don't know, maybe it's 2 years, 3 years, or maybe more. Time moves so fast, but they went out in some of the worst weather out in the North Sound area, and they were gone. One heard of them again. Would it be within the authority of the Coast Guard that in such instances you could intervene and say, listen, this is madness, we don't recommend, or you shouldn't go out, leave this port to go out into that kind of weather? Or would it really be left to?
You get into a touchy area. The Constitution gives free movement of persons. Yeah. I think you're in a position where you can say it's best advised that you don't go out under certain weather conditions.
But then the odd thing about it is, if they went out and they got in trouble,
we're going to have to
they would be expecting you to come to save them. Yeah,
well, there is some responsibility placed on the captain of that vessel for going out into seas in that condition. There's legislation under the penal code in terms of committing a reckless and negligent act, and as a result of that, the individual can be challenged in that respect. Because but that falls under the onus of the captain, who is responsible for the vessel at all times. So there's a gray area there, and because of the arrest powers aspect of things, but definitely it could be some level of intervention that can be used in that regard. But like Mr. Commander Scotland stated, there is a bit of a touchy area because of
Yeah, I think the idea of safety. Safety being an actual outcome, not necessarily an output, and that's an important distinction to make when safety evolves out of a cultural awareness to be an outcome. That's when we truly have a top-notch maritime safety culture. At the moment, when we have decisions that are clearly subpar. Where persons are not actually managing risks or taking risks into full consideration, and then measuring their responses to those risks, and ultimately putting lives in danger. Yeah. That's a testament that we have a ways to go in building the culture within the Cayman Islands to be one that is truly aware of maritime safety risks, and we have an onus placed on us as individuals to make sensible decisions and not to put other person's lives at risks. The RCIPS is continually and they're doing a fantastic job of raising awareness around maritime safety, but the fact remains that the persons continue to take decisions that are less than optimal and frankly are putting people's lives at risk, either persons who are serving as crew on their own vessels or passengers are on their own vessels, or members of the public who are traversing the waterways at the same time that they are. So maritime safety is not necessarily an output of things that an organization does or an entity does, but in our minds it's an outcome that's achieved by a collective sense of responsibility among all of us in the community.
I mean, on any given day that's calm, or the weather's conducive to safe water activity. I mean, our water sports industry is booming. Visitors coming off of cruise ships, persons arriving, spending anywhere from 2 to 5 days here. You look at Cayman Kai, a bustle of activity, especially over the weekends. You have the public beach, a hub of activity over the weekends, during the week as well. And believe it or not, we have legislation that can prosecute, but we don't have legislation that enables direct enforcement, if you will, over somebody driving or somebody operating a small vessel under the influence of alcohol.
Yes.
There are laws around driving a vehicle, but there's nothing around operating a watercraft, be it a wave runner or a boat between whatever size up to.
So that leads to the point where Commander, there's going to obviously be a need for some legislation to really get this thing really totally in place. But I see getting a signal that there is a caller. We could take that call.
Sure.
Let's go to the caller. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mr. Gilbert.
Hello?
Good afternoon, Mr. Gilbert.
Hello?
Good afternoon, Mr. Gilbert.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I am doing well, thank you. How are you?
I am very thankful and I'm highly blessed. Thank the Lord.
Wonderful.
And it's good to hear your voice too again.
Thank you.
And to the gentleman there, it's only one that I am familiar with, and that's the Anglin. But I'm not sure of the face now, It's only the surname, okay?
Good afternoon,
but
madam.
Okay.
But you all are doing you all have started a great job.
Thank you.
Hello?
Thank you.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Start a great job, but it's late in coming because as Mr. Raymond Scott was speaking a while ago about his 40 years.
Yes.
When I say late in coming, I mean it should have happened long before.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then another thing that I need to put this forward now. I don't think that Mr. Raymond has yet been paid for all that he has done and still doing. So for the gentleman there that in the portfolio for could you speak on that Mr. Raymond can be paid because all these decades that is?
Yes, but I don't think that the Mr. Ebanks could speak to that because it would have to be a case of engaging his service, and he's not engaged by government to the best of my knowledge at this time. But it's certainly something that he's hearing, and he could take it up when he's back in office.
Absolutely. Thank you for the call and for the suggestion. It's one that's not lost on me at all. Persons like Mr. Scott and many others out there who continue to contribute to safety at sea. There's certainly scope in the way forward for us to make sure that those persons are not merely involved and serving as key advisors to us who are charged with developing the strategic and operational responses, and where we can recognize them for their service, either monetarily, as you've suggested, or certainly otherwise. We would certainly look to take those opportunities to do so. So I definitely thank you for raising the point. And again, it's a minimum that I can do today, and that is to certainly publicly thank Mr. Scott for all the services that he's continuing to deliver to the Cayman Islands in terms of maritime safety and security.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you very much, caller, for calling and expressing your opinion and your view on this. I understand there's another caller. So let's take that call, and then we'll take a break after that. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the air. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, Gilbert and the rest of the crew.
Good afternoon.
I just wanted to talk about something that has bothered me over the years. Give you a brief synopsis of what happened. Back in 2009, there was a one of the newspapers published there was a number, I think it was 10 people had died out there while they were diving. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, that's a lot of people, because I went back to Bob Soder and all them people. You know what? Nobody dying out there. And there's one company in particular, I don't want to call the name, but one company in particular that had 9 people that had died underwater. And I said to myself, there's something wrong here. And I've spent to the authorities, I talked about it to them, and, well, you know, these things happen and all that kind of thing. But, gentlemen, I'm going to say something. It is my opinion, because recently I've seen, like, I think we had, like, 12 this year, somewhere in that neighborhood.
I'm not certain. Go ahead and make your point.
But the point is this. My opinion is somebody's knocking off somebody. This ain't no accident, because all of a sudden I checked into the number of persons that die from out there on the diving trips.
Yes, but caller, for that number, I don't think that we could assume that there was any intention of the causing the death of these persons, because they were varied from different places and everything else. So, you know, we don't want to say that that's the case.
What I'm saying is this. When I talked with the Scuba Diving Association, the world body of that, okay, they had 100 people that year. I think it was 2009. And we had 12 of them in Cayman. It's either the people that go out there and take people out, don't know what they're doing, or something wrong. In fact, I spoke to a young Caymanian who's a qualified diver, and he worked with the same company I'm talking about. And he said that he had quit because he saw what was happening out there with these dive people. They bring in these people, they claim they got, and half of them haven't been in salt water. They get their diving thing in lakes and stuff like that. And when you get a mouthful of salt water, different from you go and swallow some lake water. And that's another thing.
Well, that's true. There's a difference between the fresh water and the salt water. But caller, I want to thank you for raising the point that you have. We do hear of the number of persons that we wish didn't happen, but a lot of it seems to be their physical health, as I understand it. But thank you for your call, and we need to go to a break at this time. Stay tuned. You're listening to Talk Today. We'll be back after this short break, and we'll be in our last segment of the show.
Congratulations, it's a boy.
During the greatest events of your life, whether or not you have the right health insurance coverage should be the last thing on your mind. That's why at Fidelity Health, we are committed to helping you get matched with the right plan to suit you and your family. We offer a range of plans to suit your budget, plus access to a network of quality care throughout the Caribbean and the USA. You can relax and enjoy life's greatest moments when you are covered with Fidelity Health. Call us today at 949-7822 for a free quote.
Welcome to our Esso service station. How can I help you today, ma'am?
$25 in fuel, please.
Sure. I bet I can make you smile, too.
Bet you can't.
Would $5,000 cash make you smile?
Of course. Who wouldn't? But how?
Spend $25 or more in fuel at any of our Esso service stations, and you could be the winner of $5,000 cash. Every week for 5 weeks, one lucky winner will win $5,000 cash. Made you smile, didn't I?
I'm smiling.
Drive into an Esso station today. The Esso brand is a trademark of ExxonMobil Corporation and is used under license.
Hello, this is Tamara Worms-Riley, the community dietitian at the Health Services Authority, and we want you to come out and bring your entire family to the World Diabetes Day health screening at the Health Services Authority Atrium on November 14th. That's Wednesday, November 14th from 8:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. The Cedar, Lions Club, and the Health Services Authority will be doing a full health screening from 8:30 to 2 p.m. on World Diabetes Day, November 14. See you there.
Cayman Kind is the Cayman experience.
We work at the Cayman Craft Market.
It is a myth that we do not need the cruise ship industry.
It is a fact that when there are no ships in port, we do not earn a living. We depend on the cruise industry, and if it was to reduce by half, many others just like us would suffer immensely. We want to work and provide for our families.
We need the pier.
Support the piers. Support our tourism.
Listen to to the general public.
Your thoughts are just a telephone call away. 1-800-534-8255.
What the public is saying.
Let your voice be heard. And now,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
Welcome back to Talk Today here on Radio Cayman, where we are in the last segment of the show, and we were talking about water safety, maritime safety. And one of the things that came up in Commander Scotland was the fact that there appears to be a clear need for certain legislation. And the point was made that, it's somebody on land can't drink and drive. It's something that's prosecutable.
Correct.
But is there anything in the legislation that say the people who are out there on the what's the fast craft now?
Jet skis.
The jet skis and so on, that I think I've seen on the television, I've seen where like the U.S. Coast Guard find people out there partying, and if they're under the influence, they can be arrested. But do we have something similar here? If not, it would seem like that's one of the areas you'd need to here in the country you'd need to deal with legislation, wouldn't it?
I think, and I'm subject to being wrong, but I think the closest legislation we have that could be applied in situations where you have persons who are in charge of vessels at sea and under the influence would be under the Penal Code for a Reckless and Negligent Act. We don't have so like how you have a vehicle and licensing law, we don't have a maritime.
Agreed. In addition to that as well is the under certain segments of liquor license law, and for party vessels, if the captain of that vessel is found to be under the influence as well, he can be prosecuted without that respect. Going to Scotland saying there's no other legislation other than those two, and that's subject to obviously certain parameters as well.
Just to pick back up on what we were saying about safety as an outcome. If you think about failure to plan a journey safely, failure to take sea conditions or weather conditions into account, persons on board not wearing flotation devices, or the vessel not equipped with enough flotation devices, a lack of training for the crew or instructions given to passengers before or during voyage, inadequate or safety equipment that's not maintained on the vessel, the vessel being unseaworthy.
Loaded beyond its capacity.
Overloaded beyond capacity. When you listen to statements like that, it's very quick. You can quickly grasp that you don't necessarily need legislation in place to create a culture of safety. Those things that I was just sort of rattling off the top of my head are things that any common sense person who has the safety of themselves and their passengers and the general public in the forefront.
They're so common.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sadly, that's where legislation actually has to be imposed.
And that is, you list those, you rattle those things off, and you quickly then realize that there has to be an enforcement element at the end of the day. So, of course, any type of change management program, which the establishment of the Coast Guard is looking at internal policies as well as public policy, which would include legislation and regulations, that does form an integral part of the change management process, in which we'll be discussing and advising the Cabinet on and taking in return their advice in terms of their strategic public policy for the establishment of the Coast Guard, in addition to all the other elements, including technology and training and public communications, engagement with the community.
There will have to be training in these areas, won't there?
Well, right now you can have a person that goes out and buys a 25-foot vessel, can jump behind the controls of it, take it out, and there is pretty much no test, no requirement whatsoever for them. Hopefully they will have sat beside somebody who is familiar with, the waters out there, inside and outside the reef, and has guided them and, imparted some wisdom and understanding of the environment they're in to them. Does that happen all the time? No. And I mean, it's in a lot of those situations is why, the police, Joint Marine Unit, get called for assistance, Something as simple as making sure that you have enough fuel in your tank before you go out on a Sunday afternoon. Making sure that, you have EPIRBs. Basic, I guess, description of that would be it's an emergency personal beacon or an emergency beacon that if once it falls into the water, it's activated or it's manually activated. But basic things, I mean, just the same steps that you would take getting into your car to make sure, the tire is inflated, enough fuel in the tank, you have a spare. Those things that you check and you take for granted on a daily basis, that's the same thing that you have to apply when you go out on the water. More so because it's very, very lonely out there when you break down. Yeah.
Seldom are second chances in the maritime world for mistakes. Yeah. It is important that, and from our perspective in the Coast Guard, that we create or help drive a safety culture here on this island. And it's going to take just not us preaching. It's going to take partnerships, private partnerships as well, and driving that initiative. We have seen the cause of persons taking these chances and the outcomes. Speaking directly from the perspective of being a commander and previously, and seeing the amount of calls of service we've had for people not having the basic necessities. The Port Authority law speaks directly to it and speaks to what you should have as a minimum standard. In the past we've enforced it, and we've had persons go before the court with regards to having just the minimum stuff. People go out, we're not having just basic communications. Is another concern. So it is something that we have to definitely work on from a culture perspective. Gone are the days of our grandfathers just taking the old cat boat and skiff out and taking the world around the North Sound and expecting to come back. We have to take it on. The times have changed. We're in a different era of sailors.
Yeah, totally. I mean, something as simple as, if you are going out on the water, you do have a boat, making sure that the cell phone that you have is water resistant or waterproof or inside of a case that can be the difference between you coming home and you not coming home. Making sure that your cell phone is charged at all times while you're out there. And everybody has a cell phone now.
Oh, yes. Well, gentlemen, I think that it has been a very informative occasion here in the discussion that we've had over the past hour and a half. And hopefully there are those who will take heed. I'm sure there are persons who are listening, and some of those who are persons that go on the sea quite regularly and realize that really, they must take certain responsibility for their safety, because it can be a question of life and death. Yeah. So at this time, we just have about 2 minutes left. I would ask each of you in turn to any final words that you wish to leave with us and the listening public this afternoon.
Sure. I'd like to start by saying thank you to you, Mr. McLean, and to Radio Cayman for hosting us ever so graciously, as you always do. I think it's fairly clear, and it would have gone without us having to say it, that the Coast Guard cannot act alone in improving maritime safety for the Cayman Islands. I would appeal to all of your audience to truly take personal responsibility for maritime safety. This is a collective effort and a journey where we want to see safety as an outcome, and certainly as an outcome to a cultural response to maritime safety. We're all of us professionals, and those in our private lives, we take maritime safety to be paramount in terms of our responsibilities. I'd also like to say, give a shout out to the Maritime Authority of the Cayman Islands, who have been doing a most excellent job in raising the standard of shipping registry for the Cayman Islands. They've taken it to world class. Those of us who are charged with the responsibility for maritime safety as a coastal state, Cayman is, we certainly commit to doing our best to support the Maritime Authority in their venture to make Cayman a shipping registry that is truly world class into the future. So thank you to all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Anglin.
Mr. McLean, Radio Cayman, and to thank you for providing a platform for us to reach the public and to the public, letting the air for us to speak to. Just grateful for the opportunity to come forward and be able to discuss what the future looks like for the Cayman Islands, and what we intend to try our level best to bring forward. Far long has it been for us to provide a level of service of this magnitude, and the idea for myself and definitely for Mr. Scotland is to provide a different culture, or to help groom a different culture of safety, as well as provide a better source of protecting our borders and the people who commute through it.
Thank you. Commander Scotland, you got the last word.
Thank you, Mr. McLean, and thank you for again offering us this opportunity to come and reach out to a very wide audience. As everybody around the table has said, maritime safety and security of the Cayman Islands is what we're about. Our intention is to create an entity that the people of the Cayman Islands can be proud of, that we will be a center of excellence within the region, and in keeping with the Deputy Governor's ethos and motto, we want to provide a world-class service, and that's exactly what we're going for. In closing, this is November, and between November and April are the months that we have our highest calls for service as relates to, assistance for persons in distress. So please, safety first. Exercise a bit of that good old Cayman common sense. Don't unnecessarily put yourself at risk and put others at risk. And if you happen to come across somebody out there who is in a position, even if it's as simple as where they say, yep, we're fine, we're okay, call it into the Port Authority, call it in on Channel 16, let somebody know that there is a vessel out there that's in distress. The biggest factor that plays against us is time, and the longer it takes for us to know that somebody needs our assistance is the less likelihood we will bring them back safely.
Exactly. Well, once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for taking the time and passing on the information that we should all be aware of. It affects us all. It affects our country. And, of course, as you move along with what you are doing, this radio station is available to you for occasions like these. Tomorrow we have also on Talk Today, we have someone from the Hope for Today Foundation. And then on the second segment, we have with us the Honorable Ezra Miller and opposition members. So that ought to be very interesting as well. It usually is quite fiery, and we have lots of listeners at that time. So until tomorrow, enjoy the rest of your day, and tune in again tomorrow at 12:15. Thank you to all of our listeners.
Shaken yet standing firm. This is Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.